Welcome back to Apolitical. Thanks for tuning in, and welcome if you're a new listener. Let's get into the show. So we have another city council candidate in the studio with us today, Jason Hudgins. Jason is running in District 10, which is in Southwest Atlanta, and he is running to unseat Councilwoman Andrea Boone, who is about to complete her first term in office, and she's hoping to be reelected to her second term this November. Jason and I talked about a lot in this interview, including his thoughts on the proposed police training facility in DeKalb County, as well as the displacement happening right now in Southwest Atlanta. We also discussed Councilwoman Boone's controversial vote against the Rayshard Brooks bill last summer. Before we get into that, though, make sure you are subscribed to Apolitical wherever you are listening, and also make sure you follow our network on Instagram or Twitter at Atlanta Decoded. All right, so coming right up is our interview with District 10 City Council candidate Jason Hudgins. Stay tuned. All right, so we are here with Jason Hudgins, a District 10 City Council candidate in 2021. Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to stop by. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you are a corporate trainer by trade. You've also been the chair of your neighborhood planning unit for years. But what has inspired you to take this next step in running for city council?
Yeah, I'm a background guy. I like working in the background. You know, I'm a former NPU chair. I was president of my community organization for almost 5 years. And I like that type of work because I get to work directly with people. When you make a decision or you put together an initiative, you see who it really impacts. Yeah. And that's really what drove me in this community type work. The mayor had just announced that she was not going to run for re-election, and something did click this time that I can do something different and I can take this to another level. The job that basically at the community level that I've been volunteering and doing, I could throw myself into this as a real job full time and really make some differences for some people.
Nice. So speaking of the mayor, she recently put out a public safety plan to address the rising crime within the city. And part of that plan involved hiring 250 new officers to APD by next year. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that new plan that she released, specifically that point. Do you think District 10 needs more officers on the streets?
I think that there is a goal that we need to meet, and that is fully staffing the department properly. Because if the department is not fully staffed, what you're going to end up is with call times that are not equitable. You're going to end up with police that cannot do things like community policing because there aren't enough officers. I know the captains of the zones in the district. As a former NPU chairman, I had a monthly meeting with them. And so I know how many officers staff our precincts at night, and it honestly gives me pause. I think that the mayor is correct. We do need to hire more police officers for the goal around fully staffing the department. Okay. But if you look at the numbers, 200 to 250 officers still doesn't meet that need. The independent research around it says we need at least 400 officers. Now, when I'm out in the district, when I'm talking to people in my district, they're not talking about wanting more police. They want more efficient policing. They want when they call 911 that the police actually show up. Mm-hmm. They want community policing where police get out of their cars. But if you don't have the structure around our police department, a proper structure, you don't get to those goals. But it's not just having more police, it's bringing them in correctly, it's training them properly, it's giving them the right tools, and then making sure that they live, work, and play in these communities so that they don't police them from the view of a television show or how they view a community off the news, but the community that they actually interact with.
Yeah. Speaking of training, I'm glad you brought that up. A video actually recently went viral, I'm sure you've seen it, of an APD officer kicking a woman who was handcuffed on the ground in the face. And many people would have argued that that's not really something that you could train away, right? It's not something that could be reformed. What would you say to that, and what did you think when you saw that video?
Number one, I tell you what I would tell a class at work, is that if your culture is corrupt, you cannot train yourself out of a corrupt culture. What disturbed me about that video, number one, if you look at the news story and the eyewitness accounts, that wasn't the first time he kicked her. That he had kicked her before. That's when it was filmed.
Wow.
And one thing that we have to realize about these incidents that we are seeing that go viral is that they're not happening more often. They're simply being recorded. started. That was an abusive process in so many ways it defies words. Number one, she's handcuffed. Number two, according to her family, she was having some type of mental health issue in the middle of a domestic situation. And so from a training standpoint, number one, I question if in certain instances, if police should be the ones that are responding. We have the pre-arrest diversion program here in Atlanta. I think that is a good first step. We need to make it 24/7 because issues don't stop happening at 7 p.m. on Friday, and look at alternatives to policing. The other side of it is I watched that video, and what really caught me were the other officers who stood there and said nothing. That tells me we have a culture issue that you can't train your way out of. So I don't believe that you can reform that, because that man was of stature. I'm 6'7". I know somebody that looks like my height. I'm 6'7", 200 and something pounds. You know, I know what that looks like. And for a man like that to kick a woman who was handcuffed on the ground, and yes, she did spit on him, but that doesn't equal you being judge and jury in the field like that.
Right. That being said, how do you feel about the new police training facility that the mayor and the Atlanta Police Foundation are pushing to have built on the grounds of the old Atlanta Prison Farm?
So I'm a corporate trainer by trade. You will never hear me say that training is not important. Right. However, I am not in favor of the current prison farm plan for a couple of reasons. Number one, the campus that they want to build is the size of Georgia Tech. I do question as a corporate trainer and as someone who does this full time, if you need that large of a facility. The bigger issue for me is the process around how they made this happen. This was introduced in January. There were multiple conversations that happened behind closed doors. It was brought before the public, and then only after public outcry did we have public engagement around this. Exactly. That cannot be the process in Atlanta. And we see too many processes. We saw this with the SSD tax. We see it with this. Every major initiative that comes up now, we're talking behind closed doors, and then we're rushing it through. The other thing is it doesn't get to the goal of what we say. The mayor and the police foundation say that the recruiting process, we have to have this training facility to recruit. Even if we started building it tomorrow, it will take 2 years before it opens. That doesn't solve any of the issues that we are seeing today. It's a long-term strategy. Your question earlier was, do we need a new facility? And I do think based on what we have seen, the answer is that we do need new facilities. However, this is not something that popped up this year. The council received a report in 2017 with pictures of mold and rodent problems and plumbing issues in the current facility. They did nothing during that period. And now all of a sudden in an election year, there is this fire burning that we need to stop everything and move and build this new facility with no public input. I have a problem with that because, number one, no matter how you feel about police and just the process as a whole, if somebody works for the city, they should be treated with dignity. Yeah. And I think all of police fired because there are more than just police that use the training facilities. Fire, code enforcement, they all use these facilities. They deserve better than to be a part of a political stunt, because that's really what it is. The council's pulling a stunt right now based on the emotions around this crime spike to push through a policy that may not have gone through. You heard the leader of the police foundation say in print in the AJC that he did not want public input because it will slow the process down. That can't be the standard for anything where we're on the hook. Atlanta would be on the hook for $90 million, $1 billion a year for at least 30 years. Or the facility would be $90 million. Atlanta would be on the hook for about $30 million, $1 million a year. If we invested $1 million a year into the issues that cause crime, we probably wouldn't need that large of a facility.
Right. Okay, so I want to move on to housing. I was recently watching an interview with Kasim Reed. He was speaking on the issue of displacement in the city. And he was basically encouraging homeowners, especially black homeowners who live in these historic districts, to stop selling their homes. And obviously that's easier said than done, depending on your financial situation, but I'm wondering, does it really come down to that? Is there anything that city government can actually do to eradicate displacement, or does it really come down to homeowners not, selling their properties to these investors?
I think there's a lot that city government can do around this, and then I'll answer the other part of it. I do think there is a lot. We've seen moratoriums. You saw this in Grove Park, that the city put moratoriums around, pricing and increases and some things there. I also, though, think there is a place for telling people not to sell, more from an information standpoint than anything. One of the things I did as president of the Westview Community Organization is to bring in realtors into my community organization that lived in the community to tell people, if you want to sell your home, here's what the process should look like. Here's what you should be offered. Do not sell your home for underneath this. We had people that were selling their homes for $40,000 and $60,000 cash, and your house is worth $300,000. And so knowledge and information is a part of this also. And so you got to look at the other factors that lead to displacement, not just saying don't sell your home. There's a part of that goes into it. But if you tell people don't sell their home, are you also providing ways for people to repair their homes? Because what developers are also doing, we saw it in Westview. We created a program. I started a program before I was president called This Old House Westview, where we would rally around the home of a senior once a quarter and fix the code enforcement issues, because developers were calling code enforcement and using city processes to go after people to rack up fines and issues so that they could then come in and say, well, I can buy your home. And so there are a bunch of factors that go in here that live outside of just don't sell your home.
Yeah. Well said. So let's move on to your opponent. You're running against Councilwoman Andrea Boone. She's obviously the daughter of Atlanta civil rights icon Joseph E. Boone. And she was first elected to city council in 2017. So she's about to finish her first term in November. So I'll simply ask the age-old question. Why should District 10 residents vote for you over Councilwoman Boone?
I will say what I told my community. When I look at her voting record, it is not one that favors the 10th district. She voted against us when it came to street safety, the Renew Atlanta process. She voted for the Gulch deal that gave taxes to give away. She voted for the bridge over Northside Drive. And when I see the issues that are happening in the 10th district, I don't see a voting record that matches advocacy for us on the day-to-day issues that impact people as we're going through day-to-day life. I don't have a personal quarrel with Councilwoman Boone. I've worked with her as a community president and MPU chair, but I do know that we can do better. She doesn't communicate in the way that I need her to communicate. She doesn't show up to community meetings and MPU meetings. She has attended more events in Westview in the past month since I have declared than she attended in 4 years. My understanding is she'll be at the September community meeting. It's the first one she will have attended in her term. And as a council person, you have to be close to the people and in these meetings and in these neighborhoods so that you can hear how these issues are impacting people and then go back and legislate. Councilwoman Boone a lot of times talks about, she does food giveaways and she does community events, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. As an MPU chair, community president, I did all of that. Yeah. Food giveaways, community events, but the job of a city council person is to enact legislation. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the legislation that comes out of the city council, not a lot of it has her name on it. For sure. She doesn't advocate, and that's where I think I bring a different skill set. It's not just reading the legislation that's out there and advocating, but actually sponsoring legislation to lift these issues up.
Yeah. Recently, I was on your Facebook. You accused her of playing both sides of the field when it comes to a vote that happened around policing last year. So can you explain what exactly you meant by that and why you said she flip-flopped on that issue?
Yeah, 100%. So last year, in the wake of, George Floyd and what we saw, during the summer, the Black Lives Matters protests, there was a proposal that was put before the city council by the chair of the finance committee, Jennifer Ide, which said, we're about to go into budgeting process and approve a budget. What we'll do around the police budget is, rather than commit to spending everything for the entire fiscal year, we will hold the part of the budget that begins in 2022 that we can't spend until then anyway. Yeah. It won't impact salaries. It won't impact any of that. It is operational expenses as we go through. Councilwoman Boone, there were two votes that happened around that issue. The first was was a non-binding resolution. Literally, these votes happened within an hour of each other in the same council meeting. She voted for the non-binding resolution that says, I like the idea of this. Let's look at this. And then when the vote came up for the ordinance that would have put the non-binding resolution into law so that we can actually enact it and move forward with the plan, she voted against it. I said in my Facebook post, and I'll use a term from social media. I said what I said, is that Councilwoman Boone wanted the ability to wet her finger, stick it up in the air, and see what way the wind was blowing around these issues. And so she wanted to be able to say that she supported police reform if the environment allowed for that. She also wanted the ability to go back and say, I voted, and what she's telling people now in this crime spike is, she's telling our seniors, she voted to to stop us from defunding the police. That wasn't the proposal. And to put it like that is a total falsehood, and that's why I called her out on it. Real leaders have the ability to look at the data, the information that's in front of us, stare down the road and say, this is the direction we should go, and here's why. I wish Councilwoman Boone had done that. We asked her to do it. Not only did she ignore us, then she stopped communicating with us around her vote, which is another big issue that I have. As a councilman, I'm going to take very tough votes. I will also show up at the community to explain it and talk about it. Right. I'm a former community president. I can tell you how many times I've been yelled at meetings of people who did not agree with what I said or the proposal that was put out. But that's what you do as a leader. You explain, you talk through, and you look at the process together. Yeah.
Has she taken a public stance on the police facility? Do you know? I haven't.
Nothing that is out in public. Right. My understanding, based on what we will see, maybe she'll surprise me. I would expect her to vote for it. She's part of a block of votes on the council that they tend to all vote together. And so we have a phrase we use for them in the community. We call them the nod squad. They don't necessarily read the legislation. They don't talk through the issues. They kind of just nod in agreement when things pop up. And so I would expect her to. I'm hoping she surprises me.
Right. Well, we'll definitely be following that vote very closely. Mr. Hudgins, before I let you go, could you please tell our listeners where District 10 is in relation to Atlanta and what neighborhoods encompass the district?
Definitely. So District 10 encompasses a large part of the west side of Atlanta. Yeah. So everything along and north of Cascade Road going out towards 285. There are some cutouts around there. Everything along just north and definitely south of the Martin Luther King Jr. Drive corridor, and everything west of Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard. So communities like Adamsville, historic Collier Heights, the Cascade Avenue part of that neighborhood, Beecher Hills and Westview. Those are all neighborhoods that are a part of this district, and it has a lot of history. Some of the oldest neighborhoods in Atlanta are part of this district. Neighborhoods like Collier Heights that were bastions of Black excellence, and particularly during segregation, where you saw a lot of Black leaders come up out of that community, are an important part of the 10th district.
Definitely. So if you heard your neighborhood, definitely check out Jason Hudgins. Jason, can you please tell the people where they can keep up with your campaign?
100%. Yeah, you can go to my website. It is jason4atl.com. You can find me on all social media, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, jason4atl. Shoot me a message. If you have questions, you can email me at jason4atl.com. And I look forward to interacting with y'all. You can sign up to volunteer. We're going to be knocking on doors all over the 10th district. We're going to take this case to the voters, and I believe if we do that, we'll win.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jason, so much for coming on. Our listeners appreciate it, and I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Most definitely.